Hello again, everybody. This is Steve with another writing introduction video. This time is about spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You're probably going to be like, okay, engage drool mode because this is going to be boring. Actually, no, this is going to be one that I think is going to be kind of short because there's not a lot I got to say about it, but I figure it was important to mention this. Spelling, grammar, and punctuation in your books will make or break them. And I'm not expecting everybody to be perfect. I'm not perfect. There's a lot of mistakes I make. I mean, when I write a story, the amount of times I have to go through to edit it to get proper grammar, spelling, sentence flow, and all of that is, I'll spend 2 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks tops on writing the initial rough draft. I mean, I can burn out a rough draft pretty quickly on a story, even one as much as 100,000 words. If the idea is strong in my mind, I can burn through that rough draft in no time. The next 5 to 6 months is me sitting there cleaning up that absolute train wreck of a disaster. And I'm not saying the story's bad when it comes out of rough draft. It's just that there is so much spelling and grammar and punctuation issues that, mostly grammar. Spelling I've gotten better at, and spell check helps with that. But then there's punctuation problems. There's definitely grammar problems. Of course, then you could have plot holes and plot problems and other things like that. But, I'm not ashamed to admit that my rough drafts are pretty cringeworthy. But, that also goes along with how my instructors told me is make it work, then make it pretty. That my programming instructors taught me that. My writing instructors, those who tutored me in the process, they mentioned that. It's get the idea down. Even if it's ugly, even if it's messy, even if it's gross, get it down. Get the idea out. Because the little voice inside your head that speaks to you is your writing. AKA the story itself. The story does not like to repeat itself. It will tell you its idea, and it's your job to get it down. Get it down quickly and get it down as accurately as you can. You can fix it later. Just get the idea down. Because, if you don't move on it fast enough, that idea will go away. The story will stop talking to you. You might throw a temper tantrum. Because the story itself, if you're a true writer, somebody who has that natural inclination for writing and story creation, you won't have to struggle at it. The story will tell you what to write, and you're just the scribe. And as a scribe, your job is to take care of spelling, grammar, punctuation, taking whatever what you dictated from the story and cleaning it up, improving it, polishing it, stuff like that. And when it comes to story creation, the editing side is always the hardest. It's always the most pedantic. There's a guy I follow, Dave Hayes, Praying Medic. He writes books. He talks about the fact that he loves the creating part. He hates the editing, and I'm like, yep, that's me. Yeah, because it's fun to go back and reread your story, but you got to remember is until it starts really getting to the point where it's publishing ready, it's going to be some pretty cringeworthy reading, and you're going to struggle at things. You're going to get things mixed up. It's like somebody who's just come off of cancer treatment. Their whole body's emaciated. They've lost all their strength and stuff. Now they've got to go and rebuild their muscles. Well, when you're starting out, your first day in the gym is going to suck. It is going to absolutely suck because you've got no strength left. Your body's just destroyed. Like I say, you're emaciated. You've lost all your muscle mass. And now you've got to spend the next 6 months to a year recovering that. Well, editing's kind of the same thing. You get the initial story down. Now you're the emaciated skeleton of a person who's now got to build themselves up into another Arnold Schwarzenegger or well, he's the most famous of all the muscle guys. I'm trying to think of some of the other dudes that were big muscle dudes. Well, look at Michael Dorn. I mean, he was pretty stacked. Of course, his character needed to be. The guy who plays Thor, can't remember his name, but he had, he had to get pretty ripped for his thing, and that requires a lot of hard work. There's characters who, the guy who did Wolverine, he had to get pretty ripped, and funny thing was he waited until the last second to do that, and they had to wait for him to get completely, just absolutely strapped before they could do some of the shirtless scenes, because Wolverine was supposed to be really muscular and strapped and strong and stuff, but it was a lot of work to get to that point. And that's the same thing with editing, is you're going to have a lot of situations where you're going to hate what you're reading, but don't worry, it'll get better. Now, going back to the key points of this, spelling. You're going to have certain words that you're going to misspell instinctively. Spell check can't correct words if you have the right, or you have the wrong word in place of something. Like toll, for example. There's, I think, 3 different spellings of toll, or at least 2 I know of. Toll and tole. And you have cloth and clothes. That's one that's gotten me on a couple of occasions. The word there has 3 different spellings. Their, there, and thy''re. So, you could have there as in location instead of there as in possessive, and spell check won't catch that. That's something you catch in your editing. You got to watch out for that. One of my big ones was not the there issue. Mine was cloths and clothes. Because for some reason I kept reading cloths as clothes. And the big difference is there's a E before the S in clothes, where it isn't in cloths. So that was one that I did a lot. Grammar. Now, grammar's an interesting one, because there are certain rules in English or in any language, certain grammatical rules that says this is always true in every case. Those you have no leeway on. Those, if it says A is A and a duck is a duck, it has to be that way. There are other things where you can change up the order of words and it's still grammatically correct. I don't remember a lot of the the fancy words like that they had when I was in English class, like I'll know the basics like nouns, verbs, consonants, stuff like that, but then there was like word structures and sentence structures and stuff, or sentence structures I should say, that were big things in English class. And like for example, okay, I'm not going to try to do this. I'm going to hurt my brain if I try to do this. So let me move on to this thing. Like with sentence structure, like I said, there are things that are set in stone that English grammar or whatever language you happen to be a native in, they say that has to be that, and there is no way around it. But then there's there's some things where it's arbitrary and you can change it up a little bit. You can have like a sentence that says like they went to dinner or to dinner they went. Both are correct. Both are correct ways of doing the same sentence. It's just what works, what works for you and what gives the best feel. And also for grammar, when you're doing narration, which this also falls into punctuation, when it's dialogue, at least especially with punctuation, the punctuation has to fit the dialogue. Now there is a little bit of give or take with that you can do with the punctuation, because you might have something that is a question but doesn't need a question mark, and you have something that isn't a question that does have a question mark. as a good writing tool, I don't use it. The thing is, back when I was first writing, I wish I had it, but didn't have it. Now that I have it, I don't need it because I've gotten experienced enough with this. Plus, I enjoy the challenge of trying to make the grammar perfect without actually using custom cheat tools. But of all of the cheat tools out there for grammar and punctuation is Grammarly. That's a big one that they push now. Is Grammarly is an intelligent grammar system it's a program that helps you fix your story grammar. Now, you don't have to necessarily agree with everything that Grammarly gives you. Grammarly, in my opinion, is more like the teacher guiding you in the right direction. When you're writing, both your characters have a unique voice to them, each voice unique to each character, and the narration, which you're the narrator, that has a unique voice. There are some things in there that I put into my books that would make an English teacher cringe. However, if you're looking at it from the sense of the story voice of the voice of the narrator, that works perfectly. Because I have in my books the narration or the narrator voice has a specific feel to it, a specific dynamic in the way it works. Now, that being said, one of the rules with narration and grammar that comes along is how punctuation works. The official rule is that the only punctuation you have on narration or sentences that are narration are periods. Period. No pun intended. Okay, pun intended. But anyways, yeah, every sentence that is narration is supposed to end with a period, regardless. I disagree. There are situations where I find that the narration does, the sentences in the narration does warrant question marks, does warrant exclamation marks. Primarily, yes, I agree that the majority of it is periods. But it is there are also those situations where you're expressing emotions. It's not dry narration. It's not deadpan narration. You have emotion in that narration. You're trying to reach out and pluck the heartstrings of the reader. And you can do that mostly with dialogue. You can do that entirely with dialogue. However, I also find that it's good to do that with the narration parts of the story. So, like I say, punctuation is not a hard and fast rule as far as the narration goes. Now with dialogue, there's an interesting little phenomenon with that. There are, like I say, there are questions that you will have that end with a period rather than a question mark, and you'll have you'll have statements that will end with a question mark instead of a period. With dialogue, when your dialogue is always in quotes, and your dialogue is, the person talking, and you want their words and their wording and their use of words, their abusive words, like if they're using slang or they're using kind of butchered English and stuff like that. Because I use butchered English for certain characters in my books, and that's usually denoted by like a word that has missing letters, and there's like a little apostrophe there denoting that letters are missing or characters are missing. I do that a lot with Southern characters, and role-playing Southern characters is so much fun because I do the kind of like the Southern plantation type character when I'm role-playing. I will do kind of the mountain hillbilly / redneck. I've even joked about doing this. I never did this when I was in regular support, But I joked about answering the phone call and making it sound like I was from the South. It's like, thank you for calling tech support. How may I assist you today? You know, something like that. And that's not perfect. I can do it better than that. But, you know, there's different things that you have to look at when you're doing that. Because you need to... Because what you're saying, what you're hearing in your head may not translate to the page. So you need to have it on the page in a way that the reader can hear it and see it. The apostrophes also work good for hard breaks in character names like Varnock, or like, well, not Varnock, the Gaelic Vaughn. Because without the little apostrophe there, you wouldn't know to pronounce it Gaelic Vaughn, which sounds like two words, but it's actually one, and it's differentiated with an apostrophe. In like Southern slang, instead of saying something, you'd say something. And you drop the G, and there's like this little apostrophe after it to indicate that, you know, you're not doing something, you're doing something. You can also purposely misspell words, like if you was wanting to do, you know, like, I'm out here doing something naughty or something good. You could add extra letters, you know, kind of draw out, like somebody says, like, instead of saying good, they say good. You could just add a couple extras, you know, O's to make it clear that the word is kind of drawn out. If it's like in the you know, when you're speaking in Southern slang or the, you know, Southern way of speaking, you drop G's off of any word ending with an ing, and then you just replace that with an apostrophe. There's some of them where I've seen it where they have words that they literally just drop the vowels. And when you read it, and when it's in print form, those vowels are replaced with little apostrophes. You know, it's just it's what gets, you know, what best gets the feel of the word out there when you're talking about, or when you're going through a particular scene or dialogue or whatever like that. And with dialogue, another interesting aspect of it is, if you have like somebody talking, they say, "Hey, I put the cat out tonight," but you don't have anything following up like he said, she said, they said, or they did this or they did that. That sentence starts with a quote, ends with a quote, and the last, or every line of, or every sentence in that, within those quotes, has punctuation. Of course, even when it has something at the end, it has punctuation, but it's not, there's a different kind of punctuation for that. In a normal dialogue, if you don't have anything that follows up afterwards, then you always, you know, every sentence in there has punctuation, including the last one. And I'll cover that more in another video, but if they do have the he said, she said thing, then you want to have, and the last sentence, you always have a comma before the quote, and then like he said, she said, or they did such and such. And you know that there's books out there that will give you all the details. I'm kind of, you know, doing a light brushing on the surface of this. I recommend, if you need help to make sure your grammar and spelling and stuff is correct, I recommend getting books. I don't have a specific book to recommend, but you could probably do a little research and find a good one that will tell you all of the ins and outs of writing and proper grammar and spelling and dialogue and things like that when you're doing your stories. Yeah, like, no, and with dialogue, the flow of the sentence, the way the wording is done, has to fit with the character, their personality. It has to have the feel of the character, and it has to stay consistent. Consistency is a huge thing in a book. Readers like consistency. They don't like things taking a left turn unless it's something that absolutely needs to happen, and only for a short time. But using big words in a story, yeah, you can do that. Kind of be sparing on it. You want it to be somewhere between an 8th and a 12th grade reading level for most books, because anything above a 12th grade reading level and you start losing people. I like to keep mine around an 8th grade reading level, just for the simple fact that it's not dumbed down too much for the higher level readers, and it's not too intellectual for the lower level readers. Like I say, I'll throw some big words in occasionally, but generally the reading is kept simple enough that it's enjoyable, which is the primary thing here. Is you want it to be enjoyable. You don't want to be in there having your brain go into thermonuclear meltdown trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the story, because the wording you're using is too far advanced, which goes into the whole grammar thing. Is good word choice. Having a dictionary and a thesaurus is also really important, because you can verify that you're using the right word. You can find alternate words. You find the word that has the right feel for what you're writing. When doing dialogue, pour a little of yourself in there. Don't be afraid to pour a little of yourself in there. If you've got a unique way of saying things, go ahead and say it. But understand that dialogue is where you can go in there and use the chopped up crazy words. Narration, do not. Narration needs to be grammatically accurate. It's like reading a textbook in a sense, just not quite that boring. But you want it to be grammatically accurate. So if you have somebody who's over there and they're doing the whole Jamaican jive in their dialogue, as soon as that dialogue ends, that odd way of saying things needs to stop, and you need to go back to what the narrator has. And the narrator's personality throughout the entire book needs to stay consistent, regardless of where it's at, what's going on, things like that. You can you can talk about it, a scene, to make it exciting and all this action's happening and stuff, but the narrator's voice has to remain consistent. Don't make it deadpan and they went down to this town and they met Eeyore and they went to the store and they got the honey. Don't do that. Keep it interesting, but keep it consistent. But yeah, I'll cover dialogue again in a different video, because that's a whole other animal all its own. And I'm at 22 and a half minutes, so I had a lot more than I thought I did. That's usually me. I mean, that's why I'm a novelist. I can start on an idea and talk about it for hours. So, trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. Oh, that's another thing. When editing, have somebody else read your books and your stories. I'll cover that more in another one on editing, but definitely have somebody else read your stuff, because one thing I've learned is they will find things that you don't. I've had people find stuff that I didn't even know was a thing. And the funny thing is too, is if you're going to hand it over to somebody else, I've found that that's a great motivator for finding problems, because you realize I want to send, you're thinking I want to send them I want to send them a story that is perfect, it doesn't have any problems and stuff. So where you're going through and you're like, okay, what am I thinking of? Like you want to find. Yeah, you want to send them a story that's perfect. Is yawny today. Anyways, you want them to find just the little stuff that you somehow missed. I've actually found it a great motivator, like I say, to hand it to somebody else, because just before I hand it to them, I'm over there finding all kinds of problems that I didn't find before. But anyways, I'm actually going to cut this one short, about 25 minutes, because I think I've covered enough on this one. There's more I want to cover, but I think that's best covered under a different video about editing. So I will hang that up here, and I will move this on to the next subject, and we'll go from there. And as usual, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, etc., please let me know. And if not, I will see you in the next video.